The antiseptic smell burned my nostrils as I scrubbed the hospital floor, my knees aching against the hard tile. 3 a.m. shifts were the worst, but beggars couldn't be choosers, especially beggars with medical school debt and a resume gap from dropping out to care for a dying mother. Now I was just another invisible cleaner at St. Mary's Memorial, my white uniform already stained despite being only 2 weeks into the job. Riley. They need someone in the West Wing. Some VIP's kid. My supervisor barely looked up from her clipboard. Room 718. They specifically requested the floors and surfaces be disinfected again. I nodded, gathering my supplies. The West Wing was where the wealthy stayed, with private suites larger than my entire apartment. My cart's squeaky wheel echoed through the dimly lit corridor as I approached. 2 men in dark suits stood outside room 718, their postures rigid despite the late hour. They scrutinized me with cold eyes as I approached. ID, the taller one demanded, his accent thick with Eastern European inflection. I fumbled for my hospital badge, suddenly aware of my disheveled appearance, frizzy brown hair escaping its bun, dark circles under my eyes. The guard examined it like it might be counterfeit before speaking into an earpiece. Cleaning staff approaching. The door opened, and I wheeled my cart inside, feeling the weight of their stares on my back. The room was unlike any hospital space I'd seen. Fresh flowers everywhere, expensive-looking equipment, and large windows overlooking the city. In the center was a hospital bed, where a little boy lay sleeping, his skin sickly pale against the white sheets. And then, I saw him. He sat in a leather chair beside the bed, his back to me. Even seated, I could tell he was tall. Broad shoulders strained against a tailored suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. When he turned, the air left my lungs. He couldn't have been older than 35. Sharp jawline, dark hair neatly styled, and eyes, deep blue and arctic cold, that locked onto mine with predatory focus. A thin scar ran along his left cheekbone, the only imperfection in an otherwise devastatingly handsome face. "You're not the regular cleaner." His voice was low, controlled, with the same accent as his men, but more refined. I clutched my mop tighter. "No, sir. Riley Adams. I'm covering this section tonight." He studied me for a moment longer before turning back to the boy. "Be quiet. My son is finally sleeping." I nodded, though he couldn't see me, and began working silently around the perimeter of the room. The boy couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, his face gaunt and suffering evident even in sleep. Various machines monitored him, their quiet beeps the only sound besides my careful movements. "What did you study?" The man's question startled me. "I'm sorry?" "Before you cleaned floors, your hands. The way you looked at his monitors when you entered." His eyes hadn't moved from his son, but somehow he'd been watching me. "You're educated. Medical?" The mop stilled in my hands. 3 years of medical school, and now you're here. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Life happens." A small smile touched his lips. Gone so quickly I might have imagined it. He stood suddenly, towering over me, and I instinctively stepped back, bumping into my cart. He smelled expensive, sandalwood, and something darker, dangerous. "My son has been in 4 hospitals, 16 specialists. No one knows what's wrong." He spoke matter-of-factly, but I could hear the fury beneath his control. "They say it's an unusual autoimmune condition. They're guessing." I glanced at the sleeping child, professional instinct overriding my fear. His symptoms? Fatigue. Recurring fevers. Joint pain. Rashes that come and go. He stepped closer, invading my space. "The best doctors in the country, and they prescribe steroids and wait." My mind raced through possibilities, but I bit my tongue. Who was I to speculate? A dropout scrubbing floors. I shouldn't... "Speak," he commanded. I swallowed hard. "Has anyone considered familial Mediterranean fever? It's rare but more common in people of Mediterranean or Middle Eastern descent." His eyes narrowed. "We are Romanian, and yes, they tested negative." "What about his medications? Sometimes children have paradoxical reactions to..." The boy stirred, whimpering in his sleep. The man was instantly at his side, one large hand gently smoothing his son's hair. The tenderness of the gesture contrasted so sharply with his intimidating presence that I found myself staring, Tata, the boy murmured, eyes fluttering open briefly before closing again. I'm here, Nico. His voice transformed, soft and reassuring. Sleep. I quietly resumed cleaning, moving to the attached bathroom to give them privacy. When I returned, the man had returned to his chair, but his eyes followed me continuously. I was hyper-aware of every movement, feeling like prey in the gaze of a predator. The boy, Nico, began coughing, a harsh, painful sound. I instinctively moved toward the water pitcher, pouring a small cup and approaching the bed. The man watched but didn't stop me as I gently helped Nico sit up enough to drink. Small sips, I murmured, supporting his back. The boy's skin burned through his thin pajamas. Definitely feverish. As I laid him back down, my eyes caught something on his arm. A distinctive rash pattern I recognized from my pediatrics rotation. My breath caught. What? The man was instantly alert. What did you see? The rash pattern. Has he been tested for Still's disease? Juvenile idiopathic arthritis with systemic onset? His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Explain. It presents like this. High fevers that spike at night. Joint pain, that specific salmon-colored rash that appears during fevers. I spoke quickly, afraid I'd overstepped. It's often misdiagnosed because the symptoms mimic so many other conditions. He stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out a phone and stepped away, speaking rapid Romanian into it. I finished cleaning as quickly and thoroughly as possible, eager to escape the intensity of the room. As I was gathering my supplies to leave, his hand caught my arm. I hadn't heard him approach. How did such a large man move so silently? Your name again. His grip wasn't painful but utterly immovable. Riley Adams. You work here every night, 5 nights a week. Sunday through Thursday. He released me, reaching into his jacket. I flinched involuntarily, but he merely produced a business card. Blank except for a phone number embossed in silver. If you're correct about my son's condition, call this number tomorrow. He slipped the card into my pocket himself, his fingers brushing against my hip. If you're wrong, forget this encounter happened. I nodded, unable to speak, and fled with my cart. The guards outside watched impassively as I hurried down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. The following evening, I arrived at work to find my supervisor waiting, her face pale. Riley, there's someone here for you. Her voice trembled slightly. In the administration office. For me? Who? Just go. Now. The administration wing was eerily quiet after hours. I pushed open the door to find the same man from the night before, looking somehow even more imposing in daylight. He sat in the hospital director's chair, while the director himself stood nervously by the window. 2 guards flanked the door behind me. Miss Adams. He stood as I entered. You were correct. My pulse quickened. About Nico's condition, the specialist confirmed it this morning. Treatment has already begun. He approached slowly, deliberate. I've been told your shift ends at midnight. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. My driver will collect you then. He straightened his already perfect cuffs. I have a proposition for you. My son responds to you. You saw what the specialists missed. His gaze was penetrating, assessing. I want you to oversee his care during his recovery. I blinked in confusion. Sir, I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified. You will work with his doctors, but you will be there, with him, at all times. His tone made it clear this wasn't a request. You'll be well compensated. My mind raced. This was insane. I didn't even know who this man was. As if reading my thoughts, he smiled. A cool, calculated expression that never reached his eyes. Forgive my manners. I am Alexandru Vaduva. He extended his hand, and I took it automatically. His grip enveloped mine completely. You Americans would call me Alex. The name hit me like a physical blow. Everyone in the city knew that name, the Romanian who controlled the eastern seaboard's criminal enterprises. Rumors of violence, trafficking, corruption, and I'd corrected his son's diagnosis. You look frightened, Miss Adams. His thumb brushed over my knuckles before releasing my hand. Don't be. I reward those who help my family generously. You'll want for nothing. I can't just leave my job, my apartment. It's been arranged. He gestured to the director, who nervously handed me an envelope. Your resignation has been accepted with regret. Your apartment lease has been settled. Your belongings will be packed and delivered. Horror washed over me. How did you... I know everything about you now, Riley Adams. He stepped closer, and I caught that scent again. Sandalwood and danger. 28 years old. Parents deceased. No siblings. Dropped out of Georgetown Medical to care for your mother during her cancer treatment. Worked 3 jobs to pay her medical bills. And still lost everything. My legs felt weak. How had he learned my entire life story in less than 24 hours? You need money. I need someone with your knowledge and instincts to watch over my son. His voice softened fractionally. Nico trusts you already. I saw it. And if I refuse? Something cold flashed in his eyes. Why refuse? I'm offering you more money than you'd make in 5 years, to do what you were trained for, help a sick child. Put that way, it sounded reasonable. But nothing about this was reasonable. I was being strong-armed by one of the most dangerous men in the city. How long? I managed to ask. Until he recovers completely. 3 months. Perhaps 4. He checked his watch. Platinum, I noticed distantly. You have until midnight to decide. Though I think we both know your answer already. With that, he walked past me, his shoulder brushing mine. His men followed, leaving me alone with the nervous director. Riley, he said quietly after the door closed. Whatever he's offering, I'd take it. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a cashier's check with more zeros than I'd ever seen, and a contract outlining my duties. Private nurse to Nikolai Vaduva. Live-in position at the Vaduva estate. Confidentiality clauses that made my blood run cold. 6 hours later, as my shift ended, I found a black Mercedes waiting outside the staff entrance. The driver opened the door without speaking. I hesitated only briefly before climbing in, clutching a small bag of personal items, all I'd had at work. Inside sat Alexandru Vadova, his features shadowed in the dim car interior. As we pulled away from the hospital, away from my life as I knew it, he studied me with those cold blue eyes. You've made the right choice, Riley, he said softly. My son needs you. What he didn't say, but what hung in the air between us. And now you belong to me. The Vaduva estate sprawled across what must have been 30 acres of manicured grounds, just outside the city limits. We passed through imposing iron gates, where armed guards nodded respectfully to the car. The main house loomed in the distance, a modern mansion of glass and stone that somehow managed to look both inviting and fortress-like. Nico is already settled in his room, Alexandru said as the car rolled to a stop at the entrance. He's been asking for you. My stomach twisted with nerves. In the harsh light of day, my decision seemed reckless. I'd essentially agreed to live with a notorious criminal because he'd made it impossible to refuse. Yet beneath my fear, there was an undercurrent of something else. Purpose. After years of cleaning up other people's messes, I was being asked to use my medical knowledge again. I'd like to see him, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Alexandru's eyes flickered to mine, a hint of approval in them. Good. Follow me. The interior of the house was a study in restrained luxury. High ceilings, artwork that I suspected cost more than my entire education, and a hushed atmosphere that spoke of efficiency. Staff appeared and disappeared silently around corners. I counted at least 3 men who were clearly security, their jackets not quite concealing their weapons. We ascended a sweeping staircase to the 2nd floor. Alexandru moved with the confidence of a man who owned not just this house, but everything, and everyone, in it. I hurried to keep pace, my worn sneakers soundless on the plush carpet. This wing is private, he explained, gesturing to a corridor that branched off. My rooms, Nico's rooms, and now yours. No staff enter without explicit permission. He stopped before a door painted a cheerful blue, the only splash of color in the otherwise monochromatic hallway. He knocked softly before opening it. Tata! Nico's voice was stronger than it had been in the hospital, He sat propped up against pillows in a bed sized for an adult, but made cozier with star-patterned sheets. The room was clearly a child's, with model airplanes hanging from the ceiling and bookshelves filled with toys. "I brought someone to see you," Alexandru said, his voice transforming again into that gentle tone reserved only for his son. Nico's eyes widened when he saw me. "The angel lady." I couldn't help but smile. "Angel lady? You made the hurt stop." He pointed to his arm where the rash had been, now faded to just a slight pink. "Tata said you're staying to make sure I get all better." I moved to his bedside, automatically checking his forehead for fever. "Cooler than before. The medication must be working already." "That's right. I'm Riley, and you must be Nico, the bravest patient I've ever met." He beamed at that, revealing a missing front tooth. "I'm 7 3/4, almost 8. Almost 8 is very grown up," I agreed, sitting on the edge of his bed. "How are you feeling today?" As Nico chattered about his new medicine and how the pokies, injections hurt, but were making the fire in his bones go away, I felt Alexandru's gaze on me, assessing every interaction with his son. When I glanced up, his expression was unreadable. "Nico needs to take his evening medication and rest," he finally said. "Dr. Petrov will be here in the morning to adjust his treatment plan." "You'll meet with him?" Nico's face fell. "Can't Riley read me a story first?" Alexandru hesitated, and I realized he wasn't accustomed to denying his son anything within reason. "One short story," I offered, looking to Alexandru for permission, "then medication and sleep. Structure is important for recovery." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps that I would establish boundaries. He nodded once. "One story. Then you listen to Riley about your medicine, Inseleji?" "Da, Tata." Nico reached for a book from his nightstand and handed it to me triumphantly. After the story, I helped Nico take his medication, an immunosuppressant that would need careful monitoring, and tucked him in. Alexandru watched the entire process from the doorway, his presence both intimidating and oddly reassuring. Whatever else he might be, his devotion to his son was absolute. Once Nico was settled, Alexandru gestured for me to follow him. He led me to a door just 2 down from Nico's. "Your rooms," he said, pushing the door open. I stepped inside, and couldn't suppress a gasp. The space was larger than my entire apartment, with a sitting area, massive bed, and what appeared to be a private bathroom glimpsed through another doorway. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, now silvered with moonlight. "My belongings," I began. "Arrived this afternoon. Everything has been unpacked." He gestured to an open closet door where I could see my meager wardrobe hanging, looking pathetically out of place in the opulent space. "There are new clothes in the dresser," he continued. "I took the liberty of having some items delivered that might be more suitable." I bristled at the implication, but before I could respond, he added, "Nico's previous specialists wore scrubs. I thought you might be more comfortable similarly attired when working with him." "Oh." I swallowed my indignation. "Thank you." He moved to a desk in the corner, where a laptop sat. "This is for you. All of Nico's medical records have been uploaded. His medication schedule, the contact information for his specialists." His jaw tightened. "The ones who failed to diagnose him correctly." I approached the desk, hyper-aware of his proximity as I opened the laptop. A comprehensive medical history appeared on screen, far more detailed than anything I'd seen in a hospital setting. "This is extensive." "I protect what's mine." His voice deepened on the word mine, sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. Nothing is too much when it comes to Nico's health. I scrolled through the files, professional curiosity momentarily overriding my unease. "Where is his mother?" I asked without thinking, then immediately regretted it when the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Dead." The word fell like a stone. "When Nico was 3. Car accident." "I'm sorry," I said softly, closing the laptop. He studied me for a long moment, his blue eyes impenetrable. "You need rest. Tomorrow will be demanding." He turned to leave but paused at the door. "Riley." "Yes?" "My son believes you're his angel. Don't disappoint him." The threat was velvet-wrapped but unmistakable. "Don't disappoint me." The door closed behind him with a decisive click, and I finally released the breath I'd been holding. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly weak. What had I gotten myself into? The next few days established a routine. I woke early to review Nico's overnight vitals, recorded dutifully by the night nurse who, unlike me, was allowed to leave the premises after her shift. Dr. Petrov, a serious gray-haired specialist who clearly feared Alexandru, would arrive mid-morning for consultation. Nico responded well to the treatment. His fevers decreased, his energy improved, and the rashes appeared less frequently. I administered his medications, monitored his symptoms, and spent hours simply keeping him company, reading stories, helping with simple schoolwork, or playing endless games of checkers, which he cheated at with endearing obviousness. Alexandru was an enigma. He left the house for long stretches, presumably attending to his business interests, but would materialize in Nico's doorway at unexpected moments, watching our interactions with that same unreadable expression. When present, his focus on his son was absolute, but I often caught his gaze lingering on me, calculating, assessing, and something else I couldn't quite name. On the 5th day, I was helping Nico build a model airplane when Alexandru appeared with another man, younger, equally well-dressed, with the same dangerous air about him. "Uncle Radu," Nico exclaimed, scrambling off his bed. "Careful," I cautioned, steadying him. His joints were still tender. Radu swept Nico into a gentle hug, speaking rapid Romanian that made the boy giggle. When he set him down, his eyes turned to me, openly curious. "So this is the miraculous Miss Adams." His English carried the same accent as Alexandru's, but was more pronounced. "My brother has told me about you." Brother. I glanced between them, noting the similarities I'd missed before. The same jawline, similar build, though Radu was slightly shorter and less imposing. "Radu," Alexandru said, a warning in his tone. "Take Nico to the garden. 10 minutes only. He needs his afternoon medication soon." "Of course." Radu winked at me before leading an excited Nico from the room, leaving me alone with Alexandru. "Your brother seems fond of Nico," I said, filling the sudden silence. Alexandru moved into the room, picking up the half-finished model airplane. "Radu is my half-brother, younger by 5 years. He has always been good with children." His fingers traced the tiny wing. Too impulsive for real responsibility, but loyal. I gathered the scattered modeling supplies, aware of him tracking my movements. "Nico's doing well. His inflammatory markers are down significantly." "I know. Dr. Petrov is very pleased with his progress." Alexandru set the model down and turned to me fully. "And with you." "I'm just monitoring what the specialists prescribed," I demurred. "Don't diminish your contribution." His voice hardened slightly. "You saw what they missed. Nico trusts you. He's happier than I've seen him in months." I wasn't sure how to respond to that. "He's a wonderful child." "Yes." Alexandru moved closer. "And now I find myself in your debt." "You're paying me very generously. There's no debt." A smile touched his lips, not reaching his eyes. "Money is nothing. My son's health is everything." He reached out suddenly, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. "You're afraid of me?" he observed. "I'd be stupid not to be," I replied honestly. This time his smile seemed more genuine. "Smart girl. But unnecessary in this case. You have my protection now." "Protection from what?" His expression darkened. "There are people who would harm what's mine to get to me." Again, that possessive mine. This time, the shiver it sent through me wasn't entirely from fear. "I'm not yours," I said quietly. "I work for you." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Everyone in this house is under my authority, my protection." His hand dropped to my shoulder, warm and heavy. "Including you, Riley." The way he said my name, rolling the R slightly, made it sound like something valuable, something claimed. The moment was broken by Nico's laughter floating up from the garden below. Alexandru stepped back, the intensity in his gaze receding. "Dinner. Tonight, 8 o'clock. It wasn't a request. Nico has been asking to eat at the big table with us. His health has improved enough to allow it." With that, he left, leaving me unsettled and confused by the encounter. Dinner was an unexpectedly domestic affair. Nico, thrilled to be eating like a grown-up, sat at Alexandru's right hand at an enormous dining table that could have seated 20. I was placed at Alexandru's left, uncomfortably aware of his presence beside me. I'd found a simple black dress among the suitable clothes he'd mentioned, relieved to discover it was modest and appropriate rather than revealing. Still, Alexandru's gaze had lingered when I entered the dining room, a brief flicker of appreciation before his expression returned to its usual controlled mask. Radu joined us, bringing a lighter energy to the table with stories that made Nico giggle and even drew rare smiles from Alexandru. I noticed the brothers spoke English throughout the meal, presumably for my benefit. "Miss Adams," Radu said, refilling my wineglass without asking, "you must find our family quite the adjustment after hospital work." "It's different," I admitted. "Hospitable, I hope?" His smile was charming, but held the same predatory edge as his brother's. "Very," I answered carefully. "Everyone has been kind." Alexandru made a sound that might have been amusement. "Riley is diplomatic. She knows perfectly well what our family is involved in." I stiffened. This was the first direct reference to his criminal activities, and yet she stays, Radu observed, studying me with new interest. "For Nico, or other reasons?" "Uncle Radu, Riley is my doctor-nurse," Nico piped up, mangling the term. "She's helping my special list fix my fire bones." The innocence of his statement broke the tension, and I smiled gratefully at him. "That's right, buddy. And you're being the best patient ever." Nico beamed, then yawned widely. Alexandru immediately checked his watch. "Time for bed, fiul meu. You've had enough excitement." I started to rise. Putting Nico to bed was part of my routine now, but Alexandru shook his head slightly. "Finish your dinner. Radu will take him up." Radu dramatically clutched his heart. "Demoted to nursemaid. How the mighty have fallen." Nico giggled as his uncle helped him from his chair. "Will you read me the dragon story?" "Only if you promise not to correct my voices like last time," Radu countered, winking at me as they left. And suddenly, I was alone with Alexandru, the massive dining room silent except for the distant tick of a grandfather clock. "You're good with him," he said after a moment, swirling the red wine in his glass. "He makes it easy." I toyed with my fork, avoiding his gaze. "He's remarkably resilient, like his father." Alexandru's voice softened almost imperceptibly. "His mother was fragile, beautiful, but breakable. I always feared Nico inherited that from her." It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared with me. I looked up, finding his eyes already on mine. "Children often surprise us with their strength," I offered. He nodded slowly, then set down his glass. "Walk with me." Again, not a request. I followed him from the dining room into a glass-enclosed solarium that overlooked the illuminated gardens. The night beyond the glass was velvet dark, making the room feel intimate despite its size. "In 1 week, you've accomplished what specialists failed to do in months," Alexandru said, his back to me as he gazed out at the grounds. "Nico is healing, physically and emotionally. The correct diagnosis is only part of it." He turned, and in the dim lighting, his features seemed softer somehow. "You give him confidence, security." He moved closer, and I resisted the urge to step back. "I find myself grateful, Riley. A rare feeling for me." My pulse quickened. "I'm just doing my job." "No." He shook his head. "It's more than that." His hand rose, fingers brushing my cheek in a touch so light I might have imagined it. "You should know. I've had you investigated thoroughly. Your background, your character." Fear spiked through me. "Why?" "To determine if you could be trusted with my son." His eyes held mine. "With my family's secrets. And?" My voice was barely a whisper, and I find myself intrigued by your loyalty, your intelligence, your compassion." His thumb traced my lower lip, sending a shock of heat through me. "Dangerous qualities to notice in someone like you." Before I could respond, he stepped back, his expression closing off again. "Rest well, Riley. Nico will need you early tomorrow." He walked away, leaving me breathless and confused in the moonlit solarium, wondering which was more dangerous, Alexandru Vaduva's anger or his approval. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows as I checked Nico's temperature. Normal for the third consecutive day. His latest blood tests showed inflammation markers dropping steadily. The treatment was working better than any of us had dared hope. "Can I go outside today?" Nico asked, his dark hair tousled from sleep. "Please, Riley. I feel good. No fire bones." I pretended to consider it seriously, though Dr. Petrov had already approved limited outdoor activities. "Well, I suppose a short time in the garden might be acceptable. If—" I held up a finger as he started to celebrate. "You take all your morning medications without complaining." "Deal!" He thrust out his small hand, and we shook on it solemnly. As I prepared his medications, my mind drifted to Alexandru. After that strange, charged moment in the solarium 3 nights ago, he'd been absent. Business in the city, according to the staff. I told myself the relief I felt was simply because his intimidating presence was exhausting, not because his absence left me oddly disappointed. "Is my Tata coming home today?" Nico asked, as if reading my thoughts. "I don't know, buddy." I handed him the small paper cup of pills. "He's very busy." Nico nodded sagely. "He runs everything. Uncle Radu says he's the most powerful man in the city." I kept my expression neutral. "Your dad certainly works hard. Now bottoms up with those pills." After breakfast and Nico's physical therapy exercises, I took him to the garden as promised. We settled on a stone bench near a koi pond, the May sunshine warm but not uncomfortable. 2 security men maintained a discreet distance, a constant reminder of the Vaduva family's reality. "Riley?" Nico leaned against my side, watching the fish swim lazily. "Why don't you go home at night like my other nurses did?" The question caught me off guard. "Well, your dad thought it would be better if I stayed here full-time while you're recovering. So you don't have a home?" His brow furrowed with childish concern. "I have an apartment," I explained, choosing my words carefully. "But right now, my job is to take care of you, so I'm staying here." "Do you miss your mom and dad?" A pang shot through my chest. "My parents died, Nico. My mom not too long ago." His small hand found mine, like my mama. "She's in heaven." He tilted his head. "Is that why you look sad sometimes? Because you miss your mama?" Children's perception never ceased to amaze me. "Yes, that's part of it. I miss her a lot. Tata says it's okay to be sad about mama, but we have to be strong too." He squeezed my fingers. "Maybe you can be part of our family now so you won't be sad." My throat tightened. "That's very sweet, Nico. Tata likes you." He continued matter-of-factly. "He looks at you different than other people." I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Your dad is my boss, Nico." "No, he—" Nico broke off, his face lighting up as he looked past me. "Tata!" I turned to see Alexandru approaching, the morning sun glinting off his dark hair. Today he wore no suit, just charcoal trousers and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, the most casual I'd ever seen him. Even so, he exuded authority. "You're feeling better," Alexandru observed, ruffling his son's hair affectionately. "Riley must be taking good care of you." "She said I could have ice cream if I do all my exercises," Nico informed him proudly. Alexandru's eyes met mine, a hint of amusement in them. "Did she? And have you earned this ice cream?" "Almost. I have to do my breathing things after lunch." "Then you must complete them." Alexandru sat beside his son, the stone bench suddenly seeming much smaller with his presence. Perhaps Riley would join us for this ice cream reward. I smiled despite myself. I wouldn't miss it. We fell into surprisingly comfortable conversation, centered mostly around Nico's improving health. Alexandru listened intently as I detailed the changes in his son's condition, asking pointed questions that revealed his thorough understanding of the treatment protocol. "The medication is working faster than expected," I concluded. "Dr. Petrov thinks we might be able to reduce the dosage in another week, if his blood work continues to improve." Alexandru nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "Excellent." His eyes lingered on mine. "I knew you were the right choice." Something in his tone made my pulse quicken. Before I could respond, Nico tugged at his father's sleeve. "Tata, can Riley come to my birthday?" It's in 2 weeks. Alexandru's expression softened. If she wishes to. Please, Riley. Nico turned those big eyes on me. Uncle Radu says there will be a bouncy castle and a magician and cake. I laughed at his enthusiasm. I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything. You'll still be here then, Alexandru said, and it wasn't a question. Nico's recovery will take at least another month. Reality crashed back. I wasn't part of this family. I was an employee with a contract. Of course, professional responsibility. Something flickered in Alexandru's eyes, but he merely nodded. Nico, go tell Mrs. Popescu that you'll be ready for lunch soon. Riley and I need to discuss your treatment. Nico hurried off toward the house, one of the security men following at a discreet distance. Once he was out of earshot, Alexandru turned to me fully. You've grown attached to my son. I met his gaze steadily. He's a wonderful child. It would be impossible not to care about him. And yet you remind yourself that this is just professional responsibility. His voice was neutral, but I sensed disapproval. I'm trying to maintain appropriate boundaries. For Nico's sake as much as mine, I looked away, toward the koi pond. I won't be here forever. It wouldn't be fair to let him think otherwise. Alexandru was silent for a moment. And if circumstances changed? My heart skipped. What circumstances? Instead of answering, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I brought you something. I don't need gifts, I said quickly. It's not a gift. He opened the box, revealing a delicate silver bracelet with a small pendant. It's protection. I stared at it, confused. I don't understand. My family has enemies, he said simply. This identifies you as under my personal protection. My staff, my associates, they will recognize it. The implications sent a chill down my spine. Is Nico in danger? Are there threats? There are always threats in my world. He removed the bracelet from its box, but I take precautions. This is one of them. Before I could protest, he took my wrist, his touch warm and sure as he fastened the bracelet. The pendant, what I now recognized as a small stylized wolf, rested against my pulse point. The wolf is the Vaduva family symbol, he explained. It means you are not to be harmed, not to be questioned. His fingers lingered on my wrist. It means you are mine to protect. There it was again, that possessive claim that should have frightened me, but instead sent heat spreading through my veins. I didn't agree to become part of your world, I said quietly. His eyes, bluer than the May sky above us, held mine. You crossed that threshold the moment you diagnosed my son, the moment I brought you into my home. I wanted to argue, to establish some boundary between us, but the weight of his gaze made it difficult to think clearly. You're afraid, he observed. Not of you, I admitted, of this. I gestured vaguely at the estate, the security men, the bracelet now circling my wrist. I don't belong here, and yet here you are. His voice softened marginally. Where do you belong, Riley Adams? The hospital? Scrubbing floors? The medical school that broke you financially? The empty apartment you returned to alone? His words cut deep, exposing vulnerabilities I thought I'd hidden. That's not fair. Life rarely is. He stood, offering his hand to help me up. Come. Nico will be waiting for lunch. I hesitated before taking his hand, telling myself it was just basic courtesy. But as his fingers closed around mine, that same electric awareness sparked between us. He held my hand a moment longer than necessary after I stood, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that seemed almost unconscious. Riley, he said, my name softer on his lips than before. You helped my son when no one else could. Whatever happens, I won't forget that. It sounded like both a promise and a warning. That evening, I sat at the desk in my room, updating Nico's medical records on the laptop. A soft knock at my door startled me. Come in, I called, expecting one of the household staff. Instead, Radu sauntered in, a bottle of wine in one hand and 2 glasses in the other. Evening, Dr. Adams. He grinned at my surprised expression. Don't worry, Alex knows I'm here. Brotherly privilege. I closed the laptop warily. I'm not actually a doctor. Details. He set the glasses down and poured deep red wine into both. Alex says you've worked miracles with Nico. The specialists deserve the credit, I demurred, accepting the glass he offered. I just helped identify the condition. Radu made himself comfortable in the armchair opposite my desk. My brother doesn't give credit easily. If he says you've helped Nico, then you have. He raised his glass. To unexpected talents. I sipped the wine cautiously. Rich, complex, obviously expensive. Did you need something specific, Mr. Vaduva? Radu, please, he smiled disarmingly. And yes, actually. I'm curious about the woman who's caught my brother's attention. I nearly choked on my wine. I haven't caught anyone's attention. I'm Nico's nurse. Radu laughed. The sound warm and genuine. Is that what you think? Alex doesn't bring just anyone into the family wing. Doesn't give just anyone his personal protection. He nodded toward the bracelet I still wore. That little wolf means something significant in our world. So I've been told. I set my glass down. Look, I appreciate the welcome, but... You misunderstand me, Radu interrupted, suddenly serious. I'm not here to warn you off, quite the opposite. I don't follow. He leaned forward, studying me intently. My brother has been different since Nico's mother died. Colder, more controlled. The only warmth he shows is to his son. Radu's eyes, a lighter blue than Alexandru's, held mine. Until you arrived, my heart thudded uncomfortably. You're misinterpreting professional courtesy. Am I? Radu smiled knowingly. Alex doesn't have professional courtesy. He has business transactions and family, nothing in between. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I redirected. Nico mentioned his birthday celebration. He's very excited. Radu allowed the subject change with a gracious nod. It will be the event of the season, Nico's first real party since his illness began. He sipped his wine. There will be important guests, business associates, political allies. Sounds more like a networking event than a child's party, I observed. In our world, they're often the same thing. Radu shrugged. Don't worry. Nico will have his bouncy castle and magician in the garden. The adult festivities will be separate. I should probably stay with Nico, I said. Monitor his energy levels, make sure he takes his medication on schedule. And avoid the dangerous adults? Radu's eyes twinkled. I don't blame you. Though Alex will expect you to make an appearance. Before I could respond, another knock came at the door, sharper, more authoritative. It swung open before I could answer, revealing Alexandru, his expression darkening when he saw his brother. Radu, he said, a warning in his tone. I thought you were handling the shipment issue, all taken care of, Radu replied smoothly, raising his glass in a mock salute. I was just welcoming Riley properly to the family, something you neglected to do. The brothers stared at each other for a tense moment, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Radu stood, draining his wine. I know when I'm not wanted. Riley, it's been illuminating. He brushed past Alexandru with a wink in my direction. Don't be too hard on her, brother. She's still adjusting to our world. After Radu left, Alexandru remained in the doorway, his gaze sweeping the room, taking in the wine, the 2 glasses, my slightly flushed face. My brother can be overwhelming, he said finally. He was perfectly polite, I assured him. Just curious about the woman taking care of his nephew. Alexandru stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. The atmosphere immediately changed, the space feeling smaller, more intimate. And what did you tell him? Alexandru asked, moving to where Radu had sat and picking up the abandoned wine glass. That I'm just doing my job. I watched as he sniffed the wine, then set it down without drinking. He seems to think there's more to it. Alexandru's eyes met mine, something smoldering in their depths. Radu has always had an active imagination. But you don't. I held his gaze, surprising myself with my boldness. So why did you really give me this? I raised my wrist, the silver bracelet catching the light. In 2 strides, he was before me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. He took my raised wrist in his hand, his thumb pressing gently against my pulse point. I told you. Protection. From what? I whispered. From anyone who might think to use you to get to me. His voice deepened. From anyone who might think you're expendable. The word hung between us, heavy with implication. I should have been terrified. This man was admitting that his criminal activities put everyone around him in danger. Instead, I found myself drawn closer, like a moth to deadly flame. And am I? Expendable? The question escaped before I could stop it. His grip tightened fractionally on my wrist. You're under my protection now. He reached up with his free hand, fingers tracing my jawline with surprising gentleness. Nothing and no one I protect is expendable. My heart hammered so loudly I was certain he could hear it. His face was inches from mine, his eyes dropping to my lips. The tension between us stretched taut, a rubber band ready to snap. Then his phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. The moment shattered. Alexandru stepped back, his expression closing off as he checked the screen. Business, he said curtly. We'll continue this discussion another time. He left as suddenly as he had appeared, leaving me breathless and confused, wondering what might have happened if that phone hadn't interrupted us, and whether I should be grateful for the reprieve or disappointed. Nico's birthday arrived with perfect weather, sunny skies and a gentle breeze that rustled through the garden's maple trees. The estate had transformed overnight, with staff scurrying to prepare both the child-friendly celebration in the gardens and the more formal reception in the main house. I helped Nico dress in the new outfit his father had selected, navy shorts, a crisp white button-down, and suspenders that made him look adorably grown up. Do I look handsome, Riley? He asked, attempting to smooth his cowlick with little success. The handsomest birthday boy in the whole world, I assured him, kneeling to fix his collar. How are you feeling? Any joint pain today? He shook his head vigorously. All better. Dr. Petrov said I'm the best patient. You certainly are. I checked his temperature with the back of my hand against his forehead, a habit I'd developed despite the digital thermometer nearby. Normal, as it had been for over a week now. Remember, if you start feeling tired, you tell me right away, okay? No pushing yourself just because it's your birthday. Promise. He held out his pinky, and we solemnly pinky swore. When we descended to the garden, Nico gasped with delight. Alexandru had spared no expense. A carnival-themed wonderland awaited, complete with the promised bouncy castle, a small Ferris wheel, game booths, and even a cotton candy machine. About a dozen children Nico's age, the offspring of Alexandru's associates, I presumed, were already playing under the watchful eyes of both their parents and Vaduva security personnel. Look, Tata! Nico broke away from me, running toward Alexandru, who stood conversing with several well-dressed men near the terrace. Despite the festive occasion, he wore his customary dark suit, though he'd conceded to a more casual open collar. Alexandru immediately excused himself from his conversation, crouching down to his son's level, a gesture of vulnerability I'd rarely seen him display in front of others. He listened intently as Nico excitedly pointed out all the attractions, nodding with genuine warmth. Then his eyes found mine across the lawn, and something shifted in his expression. A softening, a recognition. He whispered something to Nico, who nodded and ran off toward the games, then began walking toward me with purposeful strides. I'd spent more time than I cared to admit choosing my outfit, settling finally on a simple sundress in deep green. The wolf bracelet gleamed at my wrist, impossible to miss. I'd considered removing it dozens of times, but something always stopped me. Riley? Alexandru greeted me, his gaze sweeping appreciatively over my appearance. You look beautiful. Thank you. I nodded toward Nico, now throwing darts at balloons with fierce concentration. He's so happy today. It's wonderful to see. Thanks to you. Alexandru stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, that now familiar blend of sandalwood and something uniquely him. His recovery has been remarkable. Dr. Petrov is astonished. The treatment is working exactly as it should, I deflected. Nico's natural resilience is doing the rest. A small smile touched Alexandru's lips. Always modest. His hand brushed my arm, a touch so light it might have been accidental if not for the intent in his eyes. Join me for a moment. There are people you should meet. Before I could answer, his hand settled at the small of my back, guiding me toward a group of elegantly dressed guests on the terrace. The warm pressure of his palm against my spine sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. The afternoon passed in a blur of introductions. political figures, business owners, all treating Alexandru with a mixture of respect and wariness that spoke volumes. I stayed mostly silent, observing the careful dance of power and deference. When introduced, I was simply Miss Adams, Nico's caretaker, yet the way Alexandru kept me close, his hand returning to my back or brushing my arm, communicated something else entirely. I escaped after an hour, using Nico's medication schedule as an excuse. Finding him surrounded by new friends at the magician's show, I watched from a distance, content to see him laughing and ordinary, the months of illness seemingly forgotten. He looks like a normal kid again, Radu's voice came from beside me. Today he wore a light gray suit that emphasized his more flamboyant style, compared to his brother's somber attire. You've worked miracles, Riley. Modern medicine worked the miracle, I corrected him. I just helped identify the problem. Radu chuckled. So modest. No wonder my brother is captivated. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. You're misinterpreting. I'm really not. Radu's usual playfulness faded, his expression becoming serious. I know my brother better than anyone. I recognize the signs. Signs of what, exactly? Possession. He nodded toward Alexandru, who was watching us from across the lawn, his gaze intense even at a distance, the wolf bracelet, the way he keeps you close, the way he looks at you when he thinks no one notices. My pulse quickened. I'm an employee. Keep telling yourself that. Radu raised his champagne glass in a mock toast. Just be careful, Riley. Alex doesn't do anything halfway. Once he decides something, or someone, belongs to him. He shrugged expressively. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the bouncy castle. I instinctively scanned for Nico, spotting him still safely watching the magician, but several security men were moving rapidly toward the garden's entrance, speaking urgently into their earpieces. Alexandru was already striding in that direction, his posture alert. Radu immediately sobered, setting down his glass. Stay with Nico, he instructed me sharply, all traces of his usual charm vanishing as he followed his brother. I hurried to Nico's side, instinctively placing myself between him and whatever disturbance was occurring. The other children sensed the tension, their excitement dimming as parents began gathering their offspring. What's happening? Nico asked, clutching my hand. Probably just a mix-up with the guest list, I assured him, though my racing heart betrayed my own anxiety. Hey, why don't we get you some birthday cake while it's quiet? I led him toward the refreshment table, keeping my body between him and the garden entrance where a cluster of security personnel had formed a barrier. Through gaps in their formation, I glimpsed a woman, dark-haired, gesturing angrily, her voice carrying across the lawn though her words were indistinct. Who's that lady? Nico asked, peering around me. I'm not sure, buddy, I answered honestly, cutting him a slice of cake to distract him. Here, chocolate with extra frosting, just how you like it. From the corner of my eye, I saw Alexandru speaking intently with the woman, his posture rigid with controlled anger. Radu stood nearby, his hand beneath his jacket in a way that made me suddenly, acutely aware that he was likely armed. The confrontation ended abruptly when 2 security men escorted the woman back toward the front of the property. Alexandru remained motionless for a long moment, his profile harsh against the cheerful birthday decorations, before turning and scanning the garden until his eyes found Nico and me. He approached with measured steps, his expression carefully neutral as he reached us. Everything's fine, he said, ruffling Nico's hair. Just a delivery person at the wrong address. The lie was obvious, but I nodded, playing along for Nico's sake. We're having some cake. Would you like some? In a moment. He crouched to Nico's level. Are you enjoying your party, Fuel Mew? Nico nodded enthusiastically, chocolate frosting smeared across his cheek. It's the best birthday ever, Tata. Alexandru smiled, genuine warmth breaking through his tension. Good. He glanced up at me. Riley, when you've finished with Nico's cake, I need a word. I nodded, apprehension curling in my stomach. After Nico had rejoined his friends, now gravitating toward the Ferris wheel under the supervision of the party coordinator, I found Alexandru waiting on the terrace, his back to the festivities as he gazed out over the expansive grounds beyond. Is everything really okay? I asked quietly, coming to stand beside him. It's handled. His voice was tight, Nothing for you to concern yourself with. If it affects Nico, it concerns me. Alexandru turned to face me, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. It won't affect Nico. I've made sure of that. Who was she? He studied me for a moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. Someone from my past who doesn't understand boundaries. An ex? Of sorts. His jaw tightened. It was a brief relationship years ago. She's become unstable, obsessive. I hadn't expected such honesty. Is she dangerous? Not anymore. The coldness in his voice sent a shiver down my spine, reminding me sharply of exactly who Alexandru Vaduva was. Not just Nico's devoted father, but a man with the power and will to eliminate threats without hesitation. I see. I wrapped my arms around myself despite the warm day. Something softened in his expression. His hand rose, fingers brushing my cheek in a touch so gentle, it contrasted sharply with the steel I'd heard in his voice moments before. You're safe, Riley. You and Nico both. His eyes held mine. I protect what's mine. There it was again. That possessive claim that should have repelled me, but instead kindled something warm and dangerous in my chest. I should get back to Nico, I said. My voice hardly more than a whisper. Alexandru's hand dropped to the wolf bracelet at my wrist, his fingers tracing the symbol. Yes, he agreed, though he made no move to release me. But tonight, after he's asleep, come to my study. There are things we need to discuss. It wasn't a request, but neither did it feel like a command. It was simply a statement of inevitability, as though we'd been moving toward this moment since the night I'd first entered his son's hospital room. I nodded once, then turned and walked back to the celebration, acutely aware of his gaze following me across the lawn. Night fell over the Vaduva estate. The last of the birthday guests long departed. Nico had fallen asleep mid-story. Exhausted from the excitement, but happier than I'd ever seen him, I tucked the blankets around him, brushing dark hair from his forehead with a tenderness that caught me by surprise. In just a few short weeks, this little boy had captured my heart completely. I checked his temperature one last time, normal, and kissed his forehead before quietly leaving his room. In the hallway, I hesitated, glancing toward the staircase that would lead to Alexandru's study. Our conversation from the afternoon echoed in my mind. Come to my study. There are things we need to discuss. My pulse quickened as I made my way downstairs, each step feeling somehow momentous, as though I was crossing a threshold I couldn't return from. The house was quiet, most of the staff having retired after the day's events. Alexandru's study door stood partially open, warm light spilling into the darkened hallway. I knocked softly before pushing it wider. He sat behind a massive desk, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up as he reviewed documents. He looked up as I entered, setting aside his papers and rising in one fluid movement. Riley. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. Thank you for coming. I took the offered seat, suddenly nervous. Is this about the incident today? Partly. He remained standing, moving to a sideboard where he poured amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. But also about your future here. He handed me one of the glasses, whiskey, expensive from the aroma, before leaning against the desk directly in front of me, close enough that our knees nearly touched. Nico's latest test results show his condition is fully under control. Alexandru continued. Dr. Petrov believes he'll be able to discontinue most medications within a month. My heart sank. So my services won't be needed much longer. That depends. Alexandru studied me over the rim of his glass. On what you want. What I want, I echoed, confused. Your contract was to oversee Nico's recovery. That obligation will soon be fulfilled. His eyes held mine, intense and unreadable, but perhaps there are other reasons you might consider staying. The air between us seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken possibilities. What are you suggesting? I asked, my voice hardly more than a whisper. Alexandru set his glass aside, leaning forward until his face was inches from mine. I think you know exactly what I'm suggesting, Riley. I need you to say it, I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. No ambiguity, no implications. What exactly are you offering me, Alexandru? Something like respect flickered in his eyes at my directness. He straightened slightly, giving me space to breathe. A permanent position in this household. he said, his voice low and measured. Not as Nico's nurse, but as something more significant. Define significant. His lips curved into a slight smile. So cautious, so precise. He reached out, his fingers trailing along my jawline with devastating gentleness. I want you here, Riley. With Nico. With me. I should have pulled away. Should have reminded him of the vast gulf between our worlds. He a powerful criminal, me a struggling ex-medical student reduced to cleaning floors. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my body betraying what my mind still resisted. Why? The question emerged as barely more than breath. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone. His thumb traced my lower lip, sending electricity cascading through me. I want the woman who saved my son, who sees me clearly and still doesn't flinch away, who carries my protection and makes it look like a gift rather than a brand. His fingers moved to the wolf bracelet at my wrist, tracing the symbol there. Do you know what this really means in my world, Riley? I swallowed hard. Radu said. My brother talks too much, Alexandru interrupted, though without heat. This isn't just protection, it's possession. Anyone who sees this knows you belong to me. I don't belong to anyone, I countered, though my voice lacked conviction. His smile deepened, wolfish and knowing. Don't you? In one smooth motion, he closed the remaining distance between us, his lips finding mine with devastating precision. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was claiming, consuming, breaking through every barrier I'd constructed. My body responded instantly, heat blooming through me as my hands found their way to his shoulders, not pushing him away but pulling him closer. Alexandru growled low in his throat, the sound vibrating against me as his arms encircled my waist, lifting me effortlessly until I was perched on his desk, my legs parting to accommodate him. Paper scattered to the floor, forgotten as his mouth blazed a trail from my lips to my throat. Tell me to stop, he murmured against my skin, and I will. But I couldn't form the words, didn't want to. Weeks of tension, of careful distance and professional boundaries, dissolved under his touch. I tangled my fingers in his dark hair, guiding his mouth back to mine in silent answer. The kiss deepened, his tongue teasing mine as his hands splayed across my back, pressing me against the hard planes of his chest. I could feel his heartbeat thundering in time with mine, the evidence of his desire pressing insistently against me. Reality intruded like a splash of cold water. This was Alexandru Vaduva, a dangerous man with blood on his hands, whose world was so far removed from mine it might as well be another planet. I broke the kiss, pressing my palms against his chest to create space between us. Wait, I gasped, struggling to clear my head. We can't. I don't. Alexandru didn't force the connection, though his hands remained at my waist, thumbs tracing maddening circles against my sides. Tell me what you're afraid of, he said, his voice roughened with desire. Everything. I met his gaze, forcing honesty between us. I don't know who you really are, what you've done. The woman today, you said she wasn't a threat anymore. What does that mean? Something shuddered in his expression, the passionate lover receding behind the controlled crime lord. He stepped back, allowing me to slide from the desk and stand on unsteady legs. You want the truth? He asked, reaching for his abandoned whiskey. Even if it's ugly? Especially if it's ugly. I straightened my clothing, trying to regain composure. I won't be kept in the dark about who I'm involving myself with. Alexandru considered me for a long moment, then nodded once, decisively. Sit down. I returned to the leather chair as he paced the study, gathering his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was detached, clinical. My family controls much of the East Coast's import business, legal and otherwise. Drugs, weapons, luxury goods, human cargo. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't try to make it palatable. My father built the organization. I've expanded it, made it more sophisticated. Human cargo, I repeated, feeling sick. You traffic people? His eyes hardened. Not anymore. That was my father's business. When I took control after his death, I eliminated that division, completely. Something in his tone told me I didn't want to know exactly how that elimination had occurred. And now? Now we focus on higher profit, lower risk ventures, pharmaceuticals, financial services for those who can't access traditional banking, security. You're a criminal, I said plainly. Yes. No excuse, no justification. Though I prefer to think of myself as a businessman operating outside restrictive regulations. I almost laughed at the euphemism. And the woman today? His jaw tightened. Katerina, a former associate's daughter. We had a brief relationship 5 years ago after Nico's mother died. It ended badly. How badly? She became obsessed, began showing up at business meetings at Nico's school. His expression darkened. I had her removed from the situation, set up in another city with enough money to start over. She was supposed to stay away, but she didn't. No. Alexandru drained his whiskey. Her reappearance today was unexpected. It's been handled. I didn't ask what handled meant. I didn't want to know. And Nico's mother? You said she died in a car accident. But was it really an accident? Alexandru finished, his expression softening fractionally. Yes. Elena was innocent, uninvolved in my business. She knew what I was, but chose not to see the details. The accident was just that. Drunk driver, wrong place. Nothing more sinister. I processed this information slowly, trying to reconcile the gentle father who doted on his son with the ruthless criminal who handled problems permanently. So now you know, Alexandru said, watching me carefully. The ugly truth. I won't pretend to be something I'm not, Riley. Not even for you. Why me? I asked again, genuinely bewildered. Why not someone from your world who understands the stakes, the lifestyle? He approached slowly, as if afraid I might bolt. Because you see Nico for who he is. Not as the heir to my organization. Because you challenged me that first night, instead of cowering. His voice softened. Because when you look at me, I see myself reflected as the man I could be, not just the man I've had to become. My throat tightened with unexpected emotion. That's a lot of responsibility to place on someone. I'm not asking you to save my soul, he said wryly. Just to consider the possibility that there might be a place for you here. With us. As what, exactly? Your mistress? His expression hardened. Don't insult either of us. If I wanted a mistress, I would have one. Many, in fact. He took my hand, his thumb brushing over the wolf bracelet. What I'm offering is partnership, permanence. A family, for you, for Nico, for me. The magnitude of what he was suggesting left me breathless. You hardly know me. I know enough. His certainty was unshakable. The rest we learned together. I stood abruptly, needing physical distance to think clearly. I need time. This is overwhelming. Alexandru nodded, though I could see the tension in his shoulders. Of course. Take whatever time you need. He moved to the door, opening it for me. But Riley? I paused on the threshold, looking back at him. Don't take too long. His eyes burned with quiet intensity. I'm not a patient man by nature. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind replaying Alexandru's words, his touch, the intoxicating way he'd made me feel with just one kiss. By morning, I was no closer to a decision, torn between desire and common sense. I went through my routine with Nico mechanically. Breakfast, medication, gentle physical therapy, all while my thoughts remained in Alexandru's study, trapped in that moment when everything had changed. Riley? Nico's voice broke through my distraction. Are you sick? Your face is all red. I smiled weakly, touching my cheeks to find them indeed warm. Just tired, buddy. Your party yesterday was a lot of excitement. Tata says you might stay with us even after I'm all better, Nico said, watching me with those perceptive eyes so like his father's. Is that true? My heart stuttered. Your dad talked to you about that? Nico nodded solemnly. This morning. He said it was a grown-up decision, and that I shouldn't pester you, but that he hoped you'd say yes. His small face grew serious. I hope you say yes, too. I love you, Riley. Tears pricked behind my eyes at the simple declaration. In the weeks I'd spent caring for him, this bright, resilient child had wrapped himself around my heart completely. The thought of leaving him tore at something deep inside me. "I love you too, Nico," I whispered, pulling him into a gentle hug. "So much." "Then you'll stay?" Hope brightened his voice. "It's complicated, buddy. Grown-ups always say that," he sighed, pulling back to look at me with frustrating insight. "But Tata says sometimes the most important things are actually very simple, out of the mouths of babes." Later that afternoon, I sat in the garden, the same spot where Alexandru had given me the wolf bracelet. The symbol felt heavier now that I understood its full meaning, not just protection but possession, belonging. Part of me rebelled against the implication, yet another part thrilled to it, wanting that connection, that certainty. Deep thoughts? I looked up to find Radu approaching, his usual playful demeanor subdued. "Something like that," I acknowledged as he sat beside me. "Alex told me about your conversation," he said without preamble. "He thinks you're going to run." I blinked in surprise. "I haven't decided anything yet." Radu studied me for a moment. "Can I offer some unsolicited advice? As someone who's known Alexandru his entire life?" I nodded cautiously. My brother doesn't offer himself lightly. In fact, I've never seen him do it at all, not since Elena died. Radu's usual flippancy was absent, replaced by genuine concern. "He's giving you a choice, Riley. Do you have any idea how rare that is in his world? In our world?" "That's the problem," I admitted. "It's your world, not mine. I don't belong in this life, and yet here you are." Radu's smile was gentle, looking like you've always belonged, wearing his mark, caring for his son. Making my brother smile for the first time in years, I twisted the bracelet absently. "What happens if it doesn't work out? People like your brother don't just let disappointments walk away." "No," Radu agreed soberly, "they don't. But people like my brother also don't fall in love easily." The word hit me like a physical blow. "He doesn't love me. He barely knows me. Alexandru Vaduva doesn't do anything halfway," Radu said, echoing his words from the party. "When he decides someone belongs to him, it's absolute." He stood, brushing invisible lint from his immaculate trousers. "The question is, Riley, do you feel the same?" He left me there, his question hanging in the air like a challenge. Did I feel the same? The fierce protectiveness when I thought of Nico, the electric awareness whenever Alexandru entered a room, the way my body had responded to his kiss. Was that love? Or just attraction? The dangerous allure of a man so different from anyone I'd ever known. The sun was setting when I finally made my decision, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. I found Alexandru in Nico's room, reading him a bedtime story. They made a beautiful picture, the powerful man gentled by his love for his son, Nico's face alight with sleepy happiness. Alexandru looked up as I entered, something vulnerable flashing in his eyes before his expression smoothed into careful neutrality. He finished the story, kissed his son goodnight, and followed me into the hallway. "You've made your decision," he said. Not a question, but a statement. I nodded, suddenly nervous despite my certainty. "I have conditions." His eyebrow rose slightly, but he gestured for me to continue. "I want to finish my medical degree," I began, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I won't be just an ornament or a convenient caretaker for Nico. I need my own identity, my own purpose." "Done," he said without hesitation. "Anything else?" "I want to know everything. No secrets about your business, your past. If I'm going to be part of this family, I need to understand exactly what that means." Alexandru's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly, within reason. "Some knowledge is dangerous, Riley. But yes, I will be honest with you." "And Nico," I continued. "We protect him from the worst of it for as long as possible. He deserves a childhood. On that, we are in complete agreement." Alexandru stepped closer, his hand rising to cup my cheek. "Is that all?" I took a deep breath, my final condition the most important. "I need to know this is real, not just gratitude for helping Nico, not possession or control, but something genuine." Alexandru's eyes softened in a way I'd previously only seen directed at his son. "Come with me," he said, taking my hand. He led me to his bedroom, a space I'd never entered before. Unlike the rest of the house, it felt personal, lived in. A massive bed dominated the space, but it was the wall of photographs that caught my attention. Pictures of Nico at various ages, a few of a beautiful dark-haired woman who must have been Elena, and, to my shock, several of me with Nico, candid shots taken around the estate over the past weeks. Alexandru watched my reaction carefully. "I started falling for you the night you diagnosed my son," he admitted quietly. "When everyone else had failed him, you saw what was right in front of them. But it became something more when I watched you with him. Your kindness, your patience, your strength." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, different from the one that had contained the bracelet. "This was my mother's," he said, opening it to reveal a stunning sapphire ring surrounded by diamonds. "In our family, it's given only once, to the woman who will stand beside the family leader as an equal." My breath caught as he took my hand, his touch uncharacteristically tentative. "I'm not a good man, Riley," he said, his voice rough with emotion I'd never heard before. "But with you, with Nico, I could be better. I want to be better." The raw honesty in his voice broke through my last defenses. This powerful, dangerous man was making himself vulnerable, offering me a choice when he could have simply taken. "Yes," I whispered, the decision suddenly crystallinely clear. "Yes to all of it. To Nico, to you, to us." The mask of control slipped entirely as joy transformed Alexandru's face. He slid the ring onto my finger, then pulled me into his arms, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that felt like coming home. Passionate yet tender, possessive yet giving. "Mine," he murmured against my lips, "as I am yours." "Ours," I corrected, thinking of the little boy sleeping peacefully down the hall. "We're a family now." And as Alexandru lifted me into his arms, carrying me toward the bed with reverence and barely restrained desire, I knew I'd made the right choice. This world of his, of ours now, might be dangerous, complicated, morally ambiguous, but within it, we'd carved out something real, something worth fighting for. A family forged in unlikely circumstances, a criminal with a heart capable of love, a healer who found her purpose, and a child who brought them together. Not a fairy tale, not a perfect happy ending, but our story. And somehow it felt exactly right.